This is Dive into Afrofuturity with Denenge Duyst Akpem on Titanic Remixed. Welcome. My work in the realm of Afrofuturity engages trace and memory in materials of the past and expressions of future vision. Textile encodes meaning. As seen here in the Adinkra cloth of a Santahene Prempe, a garment and historical document that charts the king's path and his values. Embedded clues open portals as evocation of liberatory possibility. In shaping and wearing, we activate these connections like spiders' webbed strands tenderly pulled, synapses reaching gingerly across time and space. We contemplate deep sea and deep space. The undulating elocutions of Saturn's rings like whale calls. Did you know that whales gently whisper when near to humans so as not to damage our eardrums? Do we care the same for them? These moon waves and sun rays reflect our primeval nature cooled in moonlight, warmed in sun. The Black Arts Movement poets of the 60s and 70s enacted a necessary symbolic reversal, reminding us of the African origins of humanity, of whom all others are variations, with Black women as the blueprint. They wrote of Blackness as all the colors of sun's illumination, of Black people as projectors of light, embodied in Yoruba orishas like Oshun, golden goddess of beauty and sweet waters whose symbols include a shimmering mirror, fan, sunflowers, a gourd of honey, and in some cases, a bow and arrow. The sun goddess coat employs dazzling color of the sun's rays at the height of day with a swirling combination of symbolic collaged motifs, including green diamonds representing Ikarem, the snake friend and protector of Tiv people. The pantheon of orishas is shaped by Yemaya, blue and white adorned goddess of the oceans, mother and creator of humanity, and protective warrior whose machete is decorated with calories of abundance. With a balance of nurturing and protective qualities, the ocean's divine power rises. Aquatic lore and maritime mythologies connect cultural threads to global traditions. Mami Wata, the name for a group of African and Caribbean water spirits, embodies dualities of both abundance and misfortune, beauty and the divine feminine. The call of waves from purple depths. The moon goddess gown mirrors images of Chicago skyline from the sacred Lake Michigan waterfront in Bronzeville, Chicago's historic Black Arts neighborhood. High femme puff sleeves depict flora and fauna from Lurie Garden in Millennium Park, capturing a floaty, effervescent essence of fragrant gardens under an emerging moon. Time stands still, and yet with the ever-evolving cityscape, this view will never be the same again. Together, they represent a dynamic and cyclical duality. The foundations of Yoruba cosmology ascribe primacy to Ejiwapo, the concept of two-ness seen in the halves of the sacred calabash. Commemorative textiles, such as this one for International Women's Day, Allow entry to a moment, a breath, a memory, reactivated through movement, motion, dance. Textiles become sites of memory, lieux de mémoire. 1980s Detroit was the site of new methods and materials being employed to shape a visionary music, techno, utilizing emerging technology and expanded forms of instrumentation to travel sonic pathways, inhabiting and sculpting the dots and dashes as sublime dislocation into the realm of digital synesthesia, post-corporeal Black abstract expressionism. Their compositions wove sound synapses and cross-temporal tapestries of watery codes like quilts that had communicated messages from covert abolitionists to those labeled fugitive, making a way out of no way, embracing alternative frequencies, new forms from old, reworked and represented, reclaimed and remixed. In the band Drexia's liberatory mythology, a reclamation is enacted upon the history of centuries-long Holocaust by European kidnappers of African peoples, transported in horrific conditions across continental waters toward the waiting nightmare of chattel slavery. In this reframing, pregnant African women thrown overboard into Atlantic waters, or as we can also imagine, jumped to a kind of freedom, en route to this fraught future enacted the ultimate liberation. They survived in the water's depth, giving birth to Afronaut aquatic beings known as Drexians, who thrive in the ocean's world, biding their time, poised to return and deliver Whitey a beatdown. From Igbo landing to the present, contemporary artists have engaged with this historical reparation in futurist world building, reflecting Africanist shape-shifting legacies, rooted in diverse cultures and resistance methodologies. As beloved theorist and musician, the late Greg Tate stated, Black people live the estrangement that science fiction writers imagine, the abduction by alien beings, forced displacement, brutal experimentation, and traumatic dislocation. In a chapter titled The Moan, from On My Journey Now, looking at African American history through the spirituals, celebrated poet Nikki Giovanni traces the most elemental sound of grief and despair, the moan, echoing through the belly of the beast, a cross-cultural wave of collective suffering, when even the sharks began to alter their paths. This is why we say enslaved Africans, not African slaves. Enslavement is a condition inflicted, not an identity. Afrofuturity illuminates historical truth intentionally hidden, reclaiming the power of invention, ingenuity, and creative praxis of Black life separate from its perception through the lens of whiteness. It honors those who have gone before and paved the way, which is the foundation of Sankofa, the concept of knowing your past to shape new futures. Vessels of liberation appear symbolically throughout African diasporic creative expression. We understand the body also as a site, as a vessel, a place of activation, and a container of memory. The Camel Coat collection inhabits this space of the visible invisible. We are made of starlight and water. Light particles zooming trillions of miles to Earth, many universes exploded into orchestrated synchronicities, reformed by fluctuations of planetary poles in orbit, crystal, mineral, superconductors, and the water remembers. From Harriet Tubman's Underground Railroad of vetted individuals, hideaways, homes, forests, and waterways, all tributary veins of a networked body mobilizing lifeblood toward freedom along codes and paths of starlight. To George Clinton and Parliament Funkadelic's mythology anchored in bringing the funk to the people, declaring free your ass and your mind will follow in concert as the mothership arrives, floating above the audience, a work of art now under attack, along with other archives at the Smithsonian Institution's National Museum of African American History and Culture. Legendary band member Glenn Goins chants the Negro spiritual, swing low, sweet chariot, stop and let me ride. I think I see the mothership coming. And to the audience, if you want to ride, help me sing. The liberatory responsibility is on those who step up to conjure with voice, sound wave. If you want to ride, help me sing. Come on now. To Sun Ra and the Solar Orchestra traveling the spaceways from planet to planet, through music itself, sound calibrated to unlock new destinations, states of being, shaping space with color, costume, and innovative space music compositions in jazz, teleporting the whole planet through music, where the vessel is you. We are each instruments in this vast orchestra of life. Apart from its story of doomed lovers, the Titanic has captivated generations with its heartbreaking tragedy and symbolism of excess gone astray in the name of forward progress. A tale of design, extravagance, and innovation, of luxury and the latest in merit in marine engineering, heralding the new age in mechanics, and in its broad shadow, the immense labor and resources required to serve its function and the public hype, including the often invisible labor of women in the creation of garments, whether extravagant or utilitarian. These stories sit at the intersections of private and public. Even within my maternal family, speaking to this journey in search of new beginnings. When the global majority thinks of ships, however, it is often through the lens of the Middle Passage. While we must acknowledge, of course, that there are many infinite examples and accounts, many still being uncovered, of international sailors and voyagers from Africa and beyond that predate this history. The Atlantic Ocean in particular holds layers of a fraught past and future and present. The water remembers. In a time when yet again a government is forcibly disappearing so-called immigrants, the Titanic provides opportunities to consider the enormity of what migration means, the interplay of fluctuating states of class, mobility, and access. Whose stories lie within, in between, and behind its glamour? What constitutes a tragedy? Where are the remains of the tens of thousands of ships that carried the millions of enslaved Africans? And whose Holocaust matters? What of those lost in the Mediterranean seeking asylum, running from systemic inequities fomented by the very countries that now seek to keep them out? The water remembers. Mohamed Isakeng's 3-channel video work, Passage, refers to life as a voyage, an important concept in the Setswana language, where the experience of life is referred to as a passage, and human beings as voyagers. The work is a meditation on transoceanic slavery, its dismemberment of African identity and enduring erasure of personal histories through a bustling trade that forced laborers from the Dutch East India Company's colonies in South and East Asia to work on plantations in the Cape Colony. The water remembers. We reclaim our histories of water. In 1919, 7 years after the Titanic White Star Line disaster, wealthy Jamaican-born shipping magnate and father of Pan-Africanism, Marcus Garvey, launched the Black Star Line, familiar to many through the music of Talib Kweli and Yassine Bey, formerly Mos Def, an homage in their name to this history. In part, this was established to support Black people's repatriation to Africa. Multi-hyphenate Paul Miller, aka DJ Spooky, wrote in the Book of Ice about Matthew Henson, who in 1909 was the first African American to reach the North Pole as part of a group of explorers led by Inuit guides. Miller details ice as a symbolic terminology within Black American culture, notably in the music and monikers of hip-hop that arose as a precursor to the digital innovation of techno. From Ice Cube to Ice-T to admiring exclamations of, "Man, that's cold," to the rabble-rousing trickster art of David Hammons with his famous Blizzard Ball sale on the streets of New York and his Cold Shoulder series. Ice as in not to be trifled with, as in a warning, statement of strength, the hardest, the best, pinnacle of cool, with coolness itself originating in the Yoruba aesthetic of the cool, transcendental equilibria. Was Titanic's demise from human error, arrogance, or mechanical breakdown? Perhaps spirits of the sea enacting gestures of refusal against a gilded ship wrought from cheap labor. Parallels to Congo's hungry children conscripted today, in continuation of Belgian King Leopold's mutilating tens of millions, in the West's rabid thirst to procure minerals for so-called progress. Nigerian artist Otobon Ukanga's monumental exhibitions confront these colonial and personal histories. With Alterscape stories spilling waste and the monumental To Dig a Hole That Collapses Again, she centers the sinking dust that remains after imperial projects, like Titanic's sunken remnants, providing clues to bygone times. The divine feminine calls back all that is hers, just as the mighty orca whales rise up against nefarious entities in present-day waters. Team Orca. Man stations himself upon the prow, surveying what will be discovered. The ship itself, an ecosystem floating precariously as testament to tenacity. The ship itself ignoring warnings that would lead to its demise. Billionaires pontificate about new colonies in space, then implode in frivolous constructions of their own design, exploding dollars into floating detritus while people beg for food and bathing formula. I like to think that the sea, the ice, and the storm are not personified in this way to act with malice or the intentionality of violent urges that so plague certain demographics of humanity. I like to believe that nature simply functions as she does. Ice will ice, storms will storm, water will flow and overflow, expand and contract and shift its form and time again, affected by how we steward her offerings, which gift our very lives. Respect its power or reap what we sow, with many caught innocently in the crossfire. We must question where lies our responsibility to ourselves, our communities, and to the legacy of the future. As Elder Malidoma Patrice Somé of Burkina Faso writes of the Dagara elemental traditions, the water people are the communicators, the ones who ensure balance through energy and word. Sci-fi writer Octavia Butler instructed us to write ourselves into existence. Afrofuturity rejects abjection and chooses celebration. The Camel Coat collection riffs on these themes of pattern protection and healing via symbolic activation, remixing camouflage from the half-tree, half-human depictions of Yoruba Orisha Osanyim, god of leaves and forest wisdom, shape-shifting biomimicry employed as both evasion and hypervisibility. The sun and moon cloaks form an otherworldly diptych in honor of these linked polarities, informed by the personal and the collective, honoring our bodies as empowered physical and spiritual sites, dynamic architectures that can be mobilized, especially within contested or dangerous spaces. Historian and curator Miwan Kwan has described sight as discursive in the context of late 60s post-riot Los Angeles, where artists like Noah Purifoy used the charred remains of the city landscape to create new works charged with power and possibility. From the city to the sea and in between, the water remembers. Thank you.